Hey, it's Phil Matthew coming to you from philandtomplus.com, and we've got Tom Matthew here. How are you today, Tom?
Oh, very good, Dad. I appreciate the energy. It was very good and reminiscent of me in Yummy Cereal. That's what it is.
How are you, Janine?
I'm good, thanks, Phil.
And here we are on episode number, Tom.
I have no idea. I think it's about 14.
Okay, and what we're going to talk about today is, I guess we've been a little bit consumed with investing into our business this week. So, because there's sort of two generations here, Tom, 23, we're around in our 50s. How did we start off, Janine? We started off with nothing. Way back, we started with nothing. We went and got a couple of jobs, and I think it'd be interesting for the listeners if they listen to, how do you actually start something? What did we do back in those days? This is back 30 years.
Talking about the 1800s?
Yeah, the
The
1800s.
idea. Oh. Well, I suppose the first decision we made, and I don't even know why we made it, was that we had that conversation. I used to live in a flat, and I can't even remember why we had that conversation. And for some reason, we decided we would save $10,000 in 1 year. Can you remember that? I can't remember why we decided that.
Well, because we had no money.
Well, yeah. Besides that, we never had any money. But I can't remember what led us to that point.
The reason was because I was, I'd been failing at school, failing. I'd failed that much. I sort of passed a few on the odd occasion. Got to the end, and I was on
Had
this.
you got your thing by then? Your
No,
qualification?
It was becoming imminent that I might be able to go into this area where I thought there was some money. So I think we might have been optimistic based on that.
Oh, okay. So what we did was we made a decision. And from that decision to save $10,000, you therefore had to basically, that became the goal. Put it that way, that became the goal. So then we had to put in an action plan of how we were going to do that. So I suppose that was where it was born, where you made a decision about, I wouldn't say sacrificing, but you made a decision about where you would spend your money. So while other people went on their end of the year holiday or got on a plane and went overseas, we didn't do that.
You used to do envelopes, didn't you? Didn't you used to put money in envelopes?
Yeah. I lived in a flat on my own, and what I used to get my paycheck, and I used to have, I think, half a dozen envelopes, and I'd have X amount of dollars for food, and I'd have X amount of dollars for electricity, etc., and they went in my envelopes. And even if that money wasn't spent, that money went in the envelope. I remember saving up to buy in my unit a $240 wall unit, and boy was I excited when I saved $240 to buy this wall unit over and above my budget. I was
You couldn't have bought an Xbox or something?
No, a wall unit. That was I bought a stereo too. I remember I saved up. That stereo was like those stereos in those days, Tom.
Yeah.
Like they were like big, chunky, like
Guys are so old.
$700 I had to save up to buy that stereo. I was so excited.
Old? Yeah, I know. You're so old.
Would you recommend that today for? I mean,
What, the envelopes?
Oh well, I guess have a think about, say, Louise. Would it be
Louise
fair to say
did that. Louise has done that because she had. My daughter Louise, our daughter Louise, is overseas at the moment. Her first big trip.
Drunk.
Oh, just stop being such a poo brother.
I hate drunk. I don't get it.
Anyhow, so she was at the start of this year. Well, yeah, the start of this year, she came to me, and I can't believe this. I don't even know how this has just popped into my head. She said to me, "Mum, I need to save $10,000 this year."
Oh, there you go.
So there you go. So I said to her, well, this is what I did when I was in the flat. And she used up until she went away, she used the envelopes. She loved it. And she was a bit like me though. Like if she got to the end of the week and there was $10 left in the envelope, especially if it was the food envelope or the whatever envelope, so so stoked with herself that she, you know, came in under budget. So
Well, I guess
so that's where our budgeting investment
And I think for
started.
people in general, that can be a good place to start. Now, Tom, on the other hand, he's very different in terms of how he sort of looks at the world, and we sort of brought him up. So he's more the entrepreneurial type. He thinks along those lines. He finds it easy to think about the idea of developing your mind and developing big ideas and maybe putting skills towards that. So you've also invested money, Tom. You know, so what's your view on, you know, you had some money and then you decided not to buy a car, or you decided not to, I don't know, go overseas. What did you do?
Well, I just gave it to you guys too, because you said you want to invest in platinum. So
I
that's
wanted to invest in the business, yeah.
So I didn't. Oh, one thing that comes up, one thing that's happened to me is before I've had people say to me, "You're just mooching off your parents,
Right.
friends and stuff like that." And Louise has, I feel like she has trouble accepting, I don't know, help, if that makes sense. Now you said multiple times that you just want to help me and Louise get a good start in life or whatever.
That's true, yeah.
There's no pressure to move out or anything like that. So I don't feel any of that. And I forget why I brought that up. But my point is, I think, with the $10,000 in terms of investing it, I didn't have any. When we first heard about that, I wanted to spend that on Bob Proctor training. Remember that?
Yeah.
But I didn't have any. I didn't even think about it. I just said, okay, let's invest in it. I didn't think about getting a car.
Because you
I didn't think about getting an Xbox or anything like that.
Because you have worked a couple of jobs and you've made money in those jobs. You're in the did the commission only phone sales, where you made several $1,000s. You did in the grocery supermarket, where you made a couple of $1,000s as well, basically. But you've never sort of thought, oh yeah, you know, you haven't really gravitated to the idea of, I'm going to go and get a job, and that's where, because I can save some money, you tend to sort of come back into the basket of, oh, I need to develop my mind, I need to develop myself, I need to develop my skills. You tend to find, you go down that road.
I think just because of the way I've been brought up, maybe because of you guys' personal development, that's since at least 14 was when I first started. You giving me books, and I've always, I don't want to say I've been against it. I haven't been against it, but it's just been I don't know if the right icky to have a job. I don't know if that's the right word. It's just it's not. I don't know. It's unmotivating. It's unexciting. It's boring.
But if you had to do it, I guess you could.
Well, of course you would. If you had to do it, of course you would.
You're a qualified
I look at
fitness trainer, aren't you?
Well, yeah.
You got the qualifications.
Yeah. And if anybody's looking to be a fitness trainer out there, it's incredibly easy. Anyway, I forget what we're talking about.
So what we're talking about, you're at a younger age, and your concept of investing, and how you have had a couple of jobs, but you haven't sort of run out there in the sense, oh, I need to, get this job, and maybe that's reflective of the house that we live in, the environment that we tend to get on. We tend to sort of be on the same page. We tend to be working towards something together. That's pretty unique, and that sort of brings us to that issue of family. Where we talk a fair bit about this idea of putting a legacy together, developing a business for the family, for the benefit of the family, and the reason I've thought that is that I've seen families, where they've had multiple skills, and I've seen the odd person have the vision in the family, but just not being able to sort of bring it together. So if you're listening out there, and maybe you're young and you have parents, it's an idea that you could, run past them, or maybe you're parents and you have kids like us, it's like I'm not that good with technology, but you guys are stronger in that area, and I sort of complement the thing with strategy and stuff like that. Planning, focus, content, the different ideas. We have our different strengths. That's the point of it. AC/DC, they're a big band, have been a long time, and they just started off as a couple of brothers pretty well. And the whole family got involved, the sisters, and Jonathan Budd's a big wheel in internet marketing, you know, and his mum's like the general manager of his business. I'm thinking of the Rolling Stones there. You know, I can remember my dad always saying, "Oh, they'll never last," you know, but they're in their 70s, and they're a bit like a family today, and they've been together that long, and they make their money through, you know, performing at live events on stage around the world. That's how they do it. So, coming back to the investing part, you know, I think the thing for people to sort of take away is the, because I can remember at a young age thinking, who you know, what do you do? Where do you invest? And I do remember stumbling across a book that was, I was 25, and it was called The Magic of Thinking Big, and that was the start of my sort of illumination. Went on a couple of personal development courses, and so it was really just my mind evolving my brain or involving my vision that allowed me to sort of, at 25 years of age, start to think outside of the traditional working a job for 40 years.
So your first venture into personal development didn't start with Amway?
No, it started, what happened was, how I got the book's an interesting question. It was a guy who was in Amway, and his name was Tony. I'm still friends with him today. And he was trying to tell me about this great idea. Now you've got to understand that he didn't really know much, and I was in a job and I was happy, and so he was really barking up the wrong tree. But he sort of, you know, whatever it was, there was a transition, and you should read this, Phil, you should read this. And he gave me this book, The Magic of Thinking Big. Now I was only 25, and so I read that, and that was the catalyst to me, because I used to work with older blokes, and we used to do field surveys, and so it was a way of me thinking outside of the mainstream, because I'd never seen anything like that before. And that book was the start. Then I started doing these personal development courses, and you know, I can remember that very first one where this bloke said, he was like an army guy, I think, and he said, "Oh, if you keep doing what you've always been doing, you'll always have what you got." A little statement like that I still remember today, and it was like a zinger, and I thought, you know, whatever it was. Now, I wouldn't say that I was dissatisfied with what I was doing at 25, but I really can't quite explain what it was that I can remember getting up in one of those personal development courses at around that age, and they'd get you up to speak, and my heart, I used to hate it, and they'd say, right, you know, and you had to just get up and tell them who you were and what you did. My heart would just hated it, and I can remember getting up and, my name's, you know, Phil, Matthew, and you know, and I'd like to run my own business. I don't know why I said that, out of my garage at home. It was something like that. I don't know why. Not sure why that streak of independence, where it was quite coming from. I still don't know to this day. And so really that was, I can relate to people who, I'm going to call it coming from a long way back, because there's no way that I was a natural. It's been a very slow development, basically. So if you're out there, what's the best investment? The best investment is in your mind, and maybe some books or CDs or DVDs, or getting to a seminar, and just trying to get a bigger vision of yourself. And you've also got to understand that everybody, you know, they are a combination of their environment, their people they associate with. I was 25, so I was a combination of my dad, very conservative man, you know, play it safe. So at that point, so then there was a collision with, say, Janine, my wife, and she was more family, more entrepreneurial, you know, running a business and, you know, working for yourself. And so maybe that was part, that you know, when I think about it, it could have been part of that catalyst of saying, yeah, you know, why not sort of, you know, work for yourself, that sort of thing. So
one of the hardest things for people to understand and get around is
when they're spending money, they actually have to, within themselves, decide it is an investment, not, oh, well, I'm spending more money. It's not an expense, and that's the hard thing.
Spending money on what?
Well, whether it's a book,
Oh,
right? Whether it's a book, or say you've started this business, and until you're actually making money in the business, the money that you are spending on, whether it's a daily basis, weekly basis, monthly basis, yearly basis, it doesn't really matter. Until you're actually making money, that money that you are outputting is an investment into your business. Once you're making money, then it's a different story. You can turn around and say, well, here's my expenses to run the business, because you're making money. At the start, every dollar you spend is an investment. And some people find it really hard to get their head around the fact that you actually really do have to invest to build a business. It doesn't magically grow out of the trees or out of, and some days the investment might be, depending on what you're in, it might be a $10, sandwich and a cup of coffee because you're meeting somebody. That's an investment in your business because you're making a contact with somebody.
I mean, to extrapolate that out, that seed that was sown led to me several years later actually getting involved in network marketing in Amway. And it led to us investing into that business $150,000 over 10 years to get back 30,000. So let's have a look at those numbers. 150 to get back 30. Is that a win or is that a loss? Now on the surface, that's a loss. So we're down 120,000.
But it's a result.
Sorry?
There's no wins, there's no losses, there's results.
Well, someone said there's no losses, there's only lessons. I really wasn't at that point of development at that point, but I was thinking. So I really was. What I did know is that I had new skills. I had different skills and I had a different brain. So that was the catalyst to going into commission-only sales. And then what happened through that commission-only sales, because one of the big skills that I had, there was 3 skills. TLC I call it, that's how I remember it. Team building, leadership, communication skills. That was what I got out of that whole experience. Because you had to go out and talk to people, which really wasn't my forte. So in that next period, I took the phone skills that were very painful to learn, making these phone calls, and then I transferred them into this direct sales business, and then over the next 9 years was able to they paid me $1 million to do that. So that wasn't bad. And then with some of that money, we could put that into property investment, and we did make money, through property investment. So, sometimes it's too early to sort of make judgments. The main thing is that what you can't get around and what's not negotiable is the development of your own mind. It's really not negotiable. Some people they find that difficult, but it's a tough one. So indirectly, what appears to be a loss on the surface, indirectly made money down the track. And so I think that's good news for people, because quite so often in this, what do I call it, this soft, comfortable, buy now, pay later, what's in it for me world, that's what we live in, and you look at all the stuff on the internet, and it's very geared, they hypnotically gear it to you,
Today.
It's today, making $10,000 next month. Now, to be fair to that, we survived that. We grew through that. We were frustrated with that. We had to learn how to read the play a bit. But, I'm not going to sort of get down on the industry because they say, hey, there's good money to be made if you learn the trade. I don't want to get down on the industry. The best thing a person can do, or the best and the faster they can find someone to hook up with, that's going to save them a lot of grief. Now, we didn't have that. We didn't quite know who to hook up with. Would that be fair to say? So people can go to the bottom of our website, they can ask a question, they can get on our list, we're contacted on Facebook. you can reach out to us and we will talk to you. That's our, Phil and Tom, Brad, we'll talk to you, basically, and we can at least sort of maybe unhype the hype to a degree, although we are here today as a byproduct of that same hype. Isn't that weird? So I guess the good news there is that, well, you can make your way through it, but if you don't get in contact with somebody to help you, then it's harder.
So you reckon the magic of thinking big was the thing that kicked it off?
Oh, it was definitely, yeah. And it actually was the catalyst at that time to me reading a couple of other books, because I really didn't know much about it. I was out there doing some painting one day and I heard the radio on and they had this book. Some bloke was on the radio, Simon McGrath, might be Neil McGrath, and he's talking about this book he'd written called The Ultimate Success. And
I read that.
And I read it as well. And it was a really good book. It was these success principles basically, and you couldn't not read that book and go, oh. And so in the end, how I knew that it was working, there were people that it helped me at work in my job because I got on with people better. People would work away with me. I was the younger person, they were the older person. They say, I remember one bloke saying to me, he goes, how come, what have you done? Have you done some courses, or have you done some motivational courses? He was sort of a bit bewildered as to how come we were all sort of working together, because the people he previously worked with, he felt like a bit of an underdog in a sense because they treated him like crap. Whereas I was treating him as an equal, I was encouraging him, I was looking at all the good things, the good points. Have a think about that.
Did you read Dale Carnegie?
That come after Amway, but that was a book. It was called How to Lose Friends and Infuriate People. I mean, no, how to win friends and influence people.
I read that as well.
And that's a great book, But that probably
that's been
many
around for
later.
years and years and
Yeah,
years,
it's been
because
around
my dad
He did,
did the Dale Carnegie course. Now that shows you how long ago
that's
that
great,
was.
But
Yeah,
there's sort
Dale Carnegie was like the first billionaire.
Was he?
Well, they're golden things and they don't really change. That's the nice thing about it.
Once you get the principles down.
Yeah, and so with the Amway stuff, I mean, all that network marketing, they were really sort of belligerent, or on developing these habits of listening to this information every day, and attending live events in the modern world. And man, I would have attended 600 events, over a 10-year period. Man, I mean, that takes a lot of focus and a lot of discipline to go and listen and listen and listen and write notes and listen and write notes, because I had a lot of internal, I'm not going to say damage, but I had a lot of internal changes to make, and it certainly took easily 5 years to 6 years, and this is I'm judging it by the phone calls. I sort of was able to I thought it was easier to go and sit down and talk to people. They called that in those days showing the plan. I don't know if it still exists. It might. And you just go and sit down with someone and talk to them. And you'd never met them before. You walk in and you talk to them. But that was set up through a phone call. So that's a very arduous process. And in those days, of course, we didn't have. It wasn't like the internet wasn't really around then. So you didn't have this. All the confusion, what they call the shiny object syndrome. So anyway, I don't want to waffle here, but how are we going with all this? Well, basically, what would you say the summary is? The summary is the best investment you can make is in your own personal education, and that could be just by buying a $10 book or going to the library, even if you can't afford that. Or if you can afford it, spend $500, on
Read
your own
an article
personal
online.
Yeah, you could read an article online.
We should have a completely separate page on our blog from everything else. Tools, software, business models, just for books.
I'm going to have a book corner.
Just recommend
Personal development stuff or motivational stuff?
Just personal development.
I was
Maybe
going to
put
put
those videos up on YouTube or something. They're really, I'll tell you what, they're really good.
I was going to put a book corner. Maybe just have a book corner on
We should just complete nothing but books.
book corner on the front page, or down the bottom corner, and just have a book corner, just on like one of those slider things.
You know what's good? By the way, Dad's just taken off for a bit. You know what fills my ego a little bit, Mum?
What's that?
Every book Dad just mentioned,
You've read.
I've read. Read them all. I remember their Ultimate Success. It was a green book with white lines on it, and it was incredibly dry. It was a tough one to get through because there was no stories in it. It was just stuff. Ugh, it's brutal.
Yeah,
Magic and Thinking Big. I've read that multiple times. I've read How to Win
Rich
Friends.
Dad,
How to
Poor
Win
Dad.
Friends and Influence People once, maybe twice. I'm not sure. I think.
I'm trying to remember, there was this other great little book, and it was either blue, it was like about 10 pages, it was either blue with dark blue writing or white with blue writing, and for the life of me, do you think I can remember
What
the
was it
name?
about? Communication.
Something like that.
I think I might have read that.
It's just a really, really tiny book.
Yeah, it was like that, and it was like that.
Yeah,
nothing.
yeah, and that was a real. I'm trying to
I read
think
it.
of the
The
name
book's
of
called
it.
Les Giblin, and it's about skills with people. There was a really skinny
I read it.
called Skills with People.
Yeah, I
It
read
Is
only
that the
takes
one
it-
I'm thinking of?
I think it could be 15 minutes. It takes through. That's
Yeah, that's the
sort
one
of
I'm thinking
I
of. That
remember
was really
It's
good.
about communication, and I tried to use it on Eric. Nonetheless, I can't even remember being friends with him in primary school, but I used it on him going into grade 3 class. I remember it saying, "Don't talk about yourself.
Ask a
Talk
question
about
to
other
other
people."
people.
So I kept asking
Asking
him about
que-
what you do this weekend.
Yeah.
What were you doing?
Is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember that going into grade 3.
Well, that's still
Actually, it might
holds.
have been grade 4.
But that still works, you know what? Especially if you go to a party, or even if you're in a shop or anything. If you ask a question to somebody,
Mm.
most
I
people
was going
will.
to the operation today. I'm on the operating table. They were wheeling me in, and they're there, and they're two nurses, and I go, "What's this job like?" They go, is this? Yeah,
Yeah.
You've been asked that before.
Anyway, I think we should wrap it up there. We've been going for a bit.
So there you go, guys. So if you wanted to do something about investing in yourself during the week, maybe just try and spend 5 minutes on an article on the internet every day.
Just read our blog posts. I mean,
Oh, there you go. Read our blog post. That's a
they've
good
got books,
idea.
They've got books and recommendations and stuff.
Thomas, are you?
Okay,
Oh,
let's wrap
I've
it up.
actually
Let's wrap it up.
Thanks, guys.
See you later.
What
Put
it's-
comments below, and
Yeah, and I'll put some of the books that we talked about, a list of the books that we talked about underneath as well.
okay. See you later.
So you have a good week. Bye.
Bye.